welcome back. My name is Dawn and this is Living a Word-Filled Life. And today we are going to dissect the Lord's Prayer. We are also going to ruffle some feathers. So just telling you right now, some of you are going to be in a tizzy and you're just going to have to get over it because I'm going by what the Word says, and this will make sense in just a minute. But most of us, I would say 99.9999% of you know the Lord's Prayer. You can say the Lord's Prayer without looking. You could say it in record speed, as a matter of fact. But today we're going to slow it down and we're going to dissect it. Now, the Lord's Prayer is found in Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 through 13. And what I'd like to do today is read each verse, and I'm going to give you the King James Version, which is what most of us are used to, and then I'm going to read the Aramaic version, which is found in the Passion Translation. And what they did is, when they did this translation of the Bible, they took the Aramaic language, which is the language that Jesus spoke, and then they translated it from that into English versus the King James. So, here we go. Verse 9 says, "Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." We're familiar with that. The Aramaic version of that, verse 9, in the Passion Translation says, "Our Father, dwelling in the heavenly realms, may the glory of your name be the center on which our lives turn." So what we're doing, we're praising God, we're putting God first. So when you pray, that's the first thing that you're doing. It's not the second verse actually, it's verse 10 in the King James Version says, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Passion Translation, same verse, verse 10. "Manifest your kingdom realm and cause your every purpose to be fulfilled on earth just as it is fulfilled in heaven." So we're asking God to take what is in heaven and bring it down to earth, to our realm where we are. Heaven is up here. We are here. And there's a spiritual realm with a whole lot of stuff going on, but that's for another day, for another video. But we're asking God to bring heaven to earth. So what's in heaven? There's love in heaven. There's no strife in heaven. There's healing in heaven. There's prosperity in heaven. So there's no lack. There's no hate. There's no strife. So we're asking God to take all that is good, all that He created the earth to really be, as it was in the Garden of Eden. We're asking Him to take that and bring that down to earth, to us, which was His will from the beginning. Verse 11, King James, "Give us this day our daily bread." Passion Translation, verse 11, "We acknowledge you as our provider of all we need each day." So what we're doing is we're letting God know that we know He is our provider. Our job is not our provider. Money is not our provider. Man is not our provider. Our boss is not our provider. Our neighbor is not our provider. God is our provider, and that's what we're saying. Verse 12, King James Version, "And forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." And some versions say, "Forgive us our trespasses." Passion Translation, verse 12, "Forgive us the wrongs we have done, as we ourselves release forgiveness to those who have wronged us." Now this is a biggie, and I've done whole videos on this, but what you're doing is you're telling God, don't forgive me unless I have forgiven my neighbor. How many times in your life have you said the Lord's Prayer? Every time you are saying, "Forgive me as I forgave others." Only forgive me if I forgave my neighbor. So some of us might need to do a heart check and see if there's some neighbors that we need to forgive. Because if you have unforgiveness in your heart, if you are holding something against someone, you're angry with someone, you haven't forgiven them for something that they did to you. It could be from years and years ago, and maybe you don't even talk to that person anymore. You don't even think about that person anymore, but in your heart you haven't forgiven them. Well, and then you're wondering like, oh, I pray but nothing happens. Well, hello. God's saying forgive as you forgive. You're asking him to forgive you as you forgive others. So that's a biggie. Moving on. Verse 13, King James Version. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. How many people stop right here? Amen. I stopped right here for 3/4 of my life. That's it. I don't know why. Because, I was taught that way, but I don't know why the church of that denomination stops right there. Because in the Bible, it doesn't stop. It says, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. So for whatever reason, the church took out that one line. Passion Translation. Rescue us every time we face tribulation and set us free from evil. For you are the King who rules with power and glory forever. Amen. So again, we are acknowledging God. We're acknowledging him and our need for him on a daily basis. And with this prayer too, you're starting with praising him and you're ending with praising him, and it keeps it all together. But before I end this video, I want to go back to verse 7, which is prior to the Lord's Prayer, which starts in verse 9. And I want to read the first little part of verse 9. So I'm going to start with 7 and end with the first little part of 9. And let's see, it says, when you pray, okay, let me back this up a little bit. The apostles were asking Jesus, how do you pray? Show us, how do you pray? What do you say? He said, when you pray, there is no need to repeat empty phrases, praying like those who don't know God, for they expect God to hear them because of their many words. There is no need to imitate them, since your Father already knows what you need before you ask him. Pray like this. And then he goes on to say the Lord's Prayer. Doesn't say pray this. Pray this every time. It says pray like this. And so when you're praying like the Lord's Prayer, he was giving us a format. He didn't say pray this prayer over and over and over and over and a gazillion times. He didn't say that. So how many times in your life, I've done this, did you do? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, getting a little bit on What even is that? What even is that? Even if you do it slow, you're doing it and you're not even knowing what you're saying. You're just imitating words. You have empty words. You're just blah, 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 blah. That is not a prayer. That's not what Jesus wants us to do. Do I think saying the Our Father, as we call it, is wrong? No, I don't. But it's not to be the only way you pray. It's not. He says this is how you pray. He didn't say this is what to pray. He said this is how. There is a big difference. If you're in an English class and you have a composition to write and your teacher reads an example to you, and then you don't go and rewrite it word for word and do it exactly like that, she would get you for plagiarism. You would get an F for not trying. It's a format. He is giving us a format on how to pray. So that's just something to think about. Now next week what I'm going to do is take this format and actually pray for you and just as an example. And no, I'm not some expert. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a preacher. I'm just a girl who loves Jesus, who actually decided to read the Bible one day and see what it says. And I found out a whole bunch of information, and you will too. So you be blessed. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.